Excellent. Thank you so much, Salah, for that update. That's really, really informative. Just a reminder to everybody, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat for this session and we will come back to them later. So I would now like to hand over to Lim Hapairai, who will talk about, he's from the Pacific Island Health Officers Association, and he will talk about the Pacific Vector Network. Lim, I hope I pronounced your last name right. Please correct it if I'm wrong. Thank you.
No correction needed. Thanks, Tessa.
Great.
And I wanted to thank the organizers for inviting Pacific Vector Network to be part of the PacMOSSI annual meeting. Also want to acknowledge the other members of the Secretariat, SPC, and also WHO, and a little wink wink to our old colleagues who used to be part of the Vector network. I don't know if you see it, fortunately or unfortunately, been designed as the mouthpiece for today's update. I usually work with mosquitoes, regional medical entomologists up in the North Pacific. Next slide. So the outline of my talk is as follow. I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I'll do it in the reverse order. Next slide. So the ugly. This is just the number of dengue outbreaks in the Pacific region. Trend is, not good. It's really ugly. It's been covered over and over. I think Sala did a better job of just covering how ugly this is. So skip it to the next slide. The bad. So, some of the discussions we had earlier is having a report of lessons learned, and looking at how we can improve. And it's really the purpose of that is to bridge the gap. And in this case, I just showed what we think is vector control on one side, and how do we get across to IPM, integrated pest management. And so we were fortunate to get together with colleagues, with people who we have common interests and partners. And the idea of having a network started to become super, super popular. Back in 2016, Pacific Heads of Health wanted to make sure that was highlighted. And then 2022 was brought up to the PPHSN, and again, strong traction until ultimately we met in Honolulu in Hawaii 2023, and we launched the Pacific Vector Network formally. And part of that process was to find out what are these gaps and to come out with the wanted list. And out of it, which was really a culmination of many ideas bouncing off a list of priorities and whatnot, was to have outbreak readiness. We don't want to address an outbreak when you're in an outbreak. That's a terrible situation to be in. Also wanted to improve the skills and the expertise in entomology. Communication is really hard. You're talking about islands with their own sets of challenges, and having this coordinating body could really help comms going back and forth between the islands, between the partners and whatnot. And then also having this desire to share these lessons or ideas, or some of the stuff that was in the chat. Do we go for BG trad? Do we go to AGO? It'd be silly not to ask our partners what worked and then improve based off of that. Also, there was a need or a big gap in laboratory capacities. Who could do this, who could do that, and what was lacking in the region. And then just generally, there needed to be some updates in terms of technology, in terms of tools. And so together, this was a list of priorities that was identified by the islands with some partners. And again, Pacific Vector Network is an island-led partnership, and it's great to have the voices from these islands, from our different countries and territories. Um, Next slide. So the good, formally launched in 2023. And then we met again in Guam last year. One of the main output was to draft this strategic framework, and it's supposed to be 2025 to 2029. Um, but maybe a G is appropriate there. Some of the inputs that went into that, of course, were the workshops that happened, multiple surveys, also a lot of partners that came in, and then of course the 2023 and 2024 annual meetings. And so the priorities for the network, which I think is the good part, are as follow. One is to ensure these regular meetings. We've had two annual meeting in person. We're still trying to look the possibilities for another in person, but most likely we'll have our annual meeting virtually. Kudos on the organization of this meeting. I think it's going really well. So I might reach out to you. Number two is to share these technical and programmatic information, these lessons learned. Um, Not just the bad stuff, we've done plenty of bad stuff over time, but also we want to learn about the good, how we can improve and then share that across. So to answer to Amanda's question earlier, yes, we are looking for opportunities, and we have ears open to the islands, and hopefully we can respond by asking another island to step in and help each other. Um, Entomological skills, Sala covered those, lots of trainings. We also have sets of trainings through PIHOA that we're opening up to PVN. Also, partners, the U.S. military are also interested in training people across the Pacific. PacMOSSI team have awesome, phenomenal trainers and trainees, training materials, and so forth. Number four, really recognize and advocate for an expansion in labs. We talked about regional labs. We visited toward the Guam lab last year. It was really neat to see that. We're hearing good stuff from the Fiji lab, and we're hoping we can maybe bug Nicola or Hervé that can help us being a third regional lab. Um, but lots of tractions being generated through this network. Fourth is again uh, making sure our islands, or we are, prepared for outbreaks. We'll try to do as much prevention, so in terms of preparedness, but also make sure we're ready to respond by having all the equipment, all the trainings, and so forth. And then six, part of that framework is to start looking at these tools. We talked about AI, talked about digital tools for data management and so forth. We really want to improve decision making, and we're going to do that by making sure it's evidence-based and it's based off of data. So that's our framework. Part of the framework includes an M&E. Want to make sure we measure our improvements. We're doing what we promised we were, that we agree that we would do. So we have indicators and deadlines and so forth. We also have a space on how to interact in terms of partnership, and that goes with the Secretariat. So in terms of governance, that's a big part of the framework, and then also the financial stability. So that how do we interact with developmental partners? So good news, as Sala pointed out, PVN is part of the PPH Ascend family. Will be part of PacNet, LabNet, EpiNet, PicNet, DDM, and syndromic surveillance. And so that will allow us to dip into resources that are available to them, but also allow us to shine, building upon their successes and sort of the information they can provide our network for vector. And so the next slide. And so with that, I want to say thanks to the partners, including ADF, CDC, DFAT, MFAT, DOS, and USAID. Over to you, Tessa.